You made it to level 2, deeper questions leading to deeper answers. I'm Tomas Garza, and I'm here to help you decide to transform. I'll be setting the pace for the process to support your unfolding. Learn and commit to a practice that brings simplicity and an awareness of what is ready to be released. Join me now and allow the experience of a deeper sense of love. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Decide to Transform. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and I have a very special guest for you today. This is an amazing show that I know you're going to love. Joining me on the show is Bradford Scott Walton from Austin, Texas. Now, Bradford and I have been looking forward to this show for a long time. We've been talking about this for a couple of months now, and it's going to be dynamic and entertaining. So I'm going to read Bradford's bio for you right now, and then we're going to welcome him on. You're going to love this today, everybody. Bradford Scott Walton is a public speaker, founding faculty member of the International Academy of Universal Self-Mastery, a contributing author to the Texas Men's Story Project on masculinity, and his unique understanding of the masculine and feminine energetic equation has been featured on numerous podcasts, as well as at the EAN Conscious Relationships Retreat. After 30 years of personal development work, Bradford learned and was given an uncommonly deep knowledge of the masculine and feminine energetic equation, how it affects us individually, and how its current state is at the root of everything that doesn't work well or feel good in the world. It is now his purpose to bring a new level of awareness of this energetic equation to the world so that we can all find our way to a new harmonic, energetic balance that will work and feel better for everyone. All right, Bradford, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tomas. It's great to be here with you.
And guys listening all around the world here, this is fun because Bradford and I have had this discussion. We first met back in May of this year, and as we're recording today, it's mid-August 2020. We were involved in a panel that had as its subject matter masculinity and femininity and the balance of that energetic equation. So that was the subject matter, and we quickly decided that we needed to talk further. But Bradford, I have several questions for you here. Let's start with this one. 30 years of personal development. How did your journey start?
It started, my mom introduced me to, what was it called before? Before it was the Landmark, stuff. It was, what was the guy's name who started?
The Landmark, was this TV or?
Oh no, like the Landmark Forum and that whole thing. Anyway, the guy who started it, before it became Landmark, it was something else. And so
Okay.
I went to one of their trainings. I think I was 18 at the time. And that was my first experience going through like a personal development workshop, some sort of intensive training and things. And so I just kept doing that over the years, and then at one point, after my mom and my stepdad they had built a company of their own and they did really well for themselves. And so part of what they did with that was they decided to gift all their kids with any kind of personal development work that they wanted to do. Cool. Right? They would pay for it. And so that was really fantastic. So I got to do a lot of really interesting stuff and go different places for different trainings. And and just like with it, I think with any sort of training, regardless of whether it's in personal development or not, you end up it's best to go in with the mindset of not all of it's going to work for you. So you have to take what works and leave the rest, Um, and
Yes.
and it's all totally dependent on where you are at that point in your life, right? It's just like, if you reread a book 5 years later, you understand different aspects of it than you did previously, because now you are a different person. You have a new awareness around different things, and now you can see things in a different light.
Hmm.
um,
Right.
it's that consistent evolution. And also, uh, for me personally, i just I just kind of always been, um, in sort of a self inquiry mode,
Okay.
right? Like, I
Yeah.
just I
Yeah.
just am always curious about what's happening within me, why I feel a certain way, how does this relate
Hmm.
to a certain person, or just trying to figure out the dynamics of
Right.
being human.
Hmm. And so, as you've figured that out, or attempted to figure that out, it's a process, like you said, over time. The dynamics of being human. What do you see that blocks people from asking the questions that you just talked about? As in, why am I feeling this way? Where's this coming from?
Well, I mean, based on what my understanding is now, we we live in a world that so drastically depresses, so suppresses, oppresses the feminine
Hmm.
energetic center, that it just doesn't feel, it's not safe or it doesn't feel safe, um, to express what's happening inside of us, what those emotions are. And I think for a lot of people, it doesn't even feel safe to ask those questions of themselves,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Because, like,
Yeah.
what happens if you take the lid off Pandora's box? Now what's going to happen? Oh gosh, I've, I've, I've let the feeling genies out. Um, but that's, I mean, that's why, um, people, that's why it's scary, right?
Okay.
That's why
Yeah.
there's the fear, that because it's not safe, or it doesn't, quote unquote, it's not safe. I mean, and it honestly can be unsafe at times. I mean, the world can be threatening, um, in a very real, physical, dangerous way to the expression of the feminine energy. I mean, we see, uh, like, for example, the gay population being assaulted and killed,
Right.
and
Yeah.
trans people, and women. I mean, Louis C.K. had a bit in his, I think in his last comedy special, where he was like, "Women, we as men are your number one cause of death, and yet you still date us, and I can't figure it out." Like,
Luckily, they
um,
do. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just like a few examples of
Hmm. Hmm.
of how that whole thing plays out. So it can be really frightening and scary. And also, that's where we store the things that hurt, right? Those are the painful places. And so it takes a lot of courage um, to face those places in us, and to go into those areas, and do some digging around, and get to a new level of understanding as to why it hurts so bad.
Right, right, and well, I mean, you've made a couple of really important points. This applies across the board, in society, really all over the world. It's almost universal,
Hmm.
and it's tempting to ask the question, okay, how did we all get to this point? But let me ask a different question, a different angle on that. We're here. What's the most important thing for us to do now that we're here? The situation is what it is. how do we go about addressing all of this imbalance?
Um, well, it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, I mean, I feel like we're the only beings, definitely on this planet, and maybe in the universe, that have an issue with feminine energy,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like animals don't care, plants, all the rest of nature is totally chill with masculine, feminine, energetic. They're the whole energetic equation. As
Hmm.
humans,
Hmm.
we're the only ones who have created some sort of story about the feminine that makes it less than, that makes it not worthy, right? So we've put this massive value on the masculine energy. So all of our systems are set up based on that. Um, and we really devalue the feminine. So when you have that kind of disharmony in what works best in at a more of an equilibrium, right? Um, it causes just massive problems, right, on global scale. It's a
Yes.
global thing. Because gender, we're not talking about how uh, people present gender wise. Um, so um, this the thing that we can do, the thing that will make an absolute difference in the world, and in my opinion, the fastest,
Okay.
is
Hmm.
to find a find in ourselves individually and then collectively a new valuation of the feminine, right? And that is going to take some doing, because we have a whole bunch of story built up from societal and familial
Right.
experiences and
Right.
cultural experiences, and just the overall overriding pressure of the current paradigm of this masculine, pressure
Yeah.
that's pushing, right? Like, I mean,
Mhm.
it's you like people have to actually, like, it actually takes effort to stop the doing and just be, right? Like you actually
Yes.
have to,
Yes.
right? Like it's like, okay, I'm gonna paddle real hard upstream so that I can sit and meditate for 20 minutes.
Mhm.
You know, like
Yeah.
it takes concerted effort to stop the doing long enough to be, and that's the feminine, right? Is the in that being. And so yeah, our
Yeah.
society isn't set up to foster that.
Right. Yeah, and it certainly isn't. And but let's backtrack just a little bit for those who may be listening who aren't entirely sure what is meant by masculine and feminine energies and how that shows up in the world. So, how does the feminine energetic portion of the equation show up in the world? So, for someone that is listening and may not know exactly what we're talking about, what are we talking about with that?
Well, the feminine is our state of being. It's our
Okay.
emotional center, right? It's where all of our emotions and feelings live, and and so and then it works in tandem with the masculine, because the
Hmm.
masculine is our doing and our sense of purpose, and right, that, and being the being a protector or provider, that whole,
Right.
like, and both of them are very, very strong in what they do and how they perform. We like I said, we've got a little bit of a skewed idea as to which one's more important or which one is more powerful. um, but they work in concert, uh,
Hmm.
all the time, always.
Right.
So the feminine is the state of being that informs the masculine on what the action should be, and it also helps define the quality of the action that's being done, both in how, like the level of how it gets done,
Right.
as well as the emotion that's attached to the doing of it, right?
Yeah.
And so those two things combined then go into the world as an action, and then whatever the response is to that finishes the loop,
Hmm. Hmm.
the feedback loop to the
Yeah.
feminine, to be like, to help the feminine understand if we should continue feeling this way about this thing, or if we should change the way we feel about it. And
Yeah.
so that's part of why, like the way this works, if the feminine is in a really positive, uh valued space, the story that you have around what that energy is really positive, then most likely the action that comes from that is going to be positive, and most likely the what gets returned energetically and emotionally is also going to be positive. So
Hmm.
you have a really nice
Yeah.
positive feedback loop that kind of makes an upward spiral of goodness.
Right. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I like that upward spiral of goodness. So then how do you suppose we got this all collectively so wrong?
Well, I mean, from what I've learned, and also uh, what I've learned from my mom, because she's done a ton of study around
Okay. Yeah.
feminine work, and like goddess energy and
Sure.
stuff like
Okay.
that. So,
Yeah.
but apparently, it's been around 7,000 years since
Oh,
we had either a feminine energetic dominant culture, or a neutral, energetically neutral
okay.
culture. So around 7,000 years ago, it switches to this masculine energetic dominant paradigm. And then we start pushing the feminine away, right? We start pushing it down, and you know, um, and it probably, I mean, in the beginning, it probably wasn't that terrible, because it takes some time to like build an actual story, and change
Sure.
that dynamic
Yes.
to where it is now. And actually now we're actually in transition already into a new way of being, which is wonderful. But it also, let's accelerate that. Let's get there faster. Let's all get on team harmonic balance, and flip this paradigm.
Yes. And that's in fact the title of the show, Flipping the Paradigm, which is a term that you use that I love. And so we've got work to do without question as a collective, as a society in this arena. So for people that are listening, again, that this might be something new to you, each one of us as individuals has both the masculine and the feminine energy in us, correct?
Yes. Yeah, 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 of course. Yeah, I mean, that's why for me, like this masculine feminine energetic equation is it's the underlying base energy of everything, right?
Hmm.
um all of every human has masculine and feminine energies, and we think of them as being very polarized and separate, but they actually have a lot of crossover, and you can actually have them be fully integrated once you
Yeah.
have the same valuation of both of them, so that they can actually really be in harmony and work together. But like one of the messages that came through for me a couple of years ago, which was really intense to hear and understand, and it seems to really kind of hit people when I say it, is that every man in the world treats the feminine outside him the exact way he feels about the feminine inside him.
Ah,
And
yeah.
that is at the root cause of everything that doesn't work well or feel good in the world, right?
Okay. Right.
Um, so because we all have our energetic signature, and
Mhm.
every time, every person you meet, you automatically recognize that. It's just a built-in feature that, we're so used to that we don't even really pay attention to a lot of times, I think,
Mhm.
unless until we either meet somebody that we really resonate with or we
Yeah.
really don't resonate with, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff in between where it's just
Uh-huh.
like, oh, there's a person, you know?
This dude walking down the street. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but it's you know, we um I was just actually thinking a couple of days ago, I woke up and I was like, energy is the language of the universe,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And but like we currently are taught that we have five senses, and none of them
Right.
have anything to do with energy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yet everything is energy. That we already, like, this is a scientific fact that everything is
Yes, it
energy,
is.
right?
Yes, it
It's
is.
not even like,
Yeah.
it's not even up for debate. It's just everything is energy. So we're constantly interacting with the energy that within ourselves, within our spaces,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
other people, with animals, with plants, right? The whole thing is vibrating.
Mhm.
um and so when you we can when we can bring that feminine into a new place, it helps everything work a lot better. When it's
Yeah.
not in a good
Yeah.
place, it makes things, like, anything that you push down inside of you is gonna come out ugly. It's
Y
just gonna come out ugly. There's just no way around it, and it doesn't matter
Mhm.
whether that's
That's right.
emotionally or physically. If it
Right.
manifests in disease or it shows up in your relationship, right? Like, it's just like, I don't care how tight your lockbox is,
Yeah.
how far
Yeah.
you down you bury
Yeah.
that, right?
Uh-huh.
It's just,
Yeah, and
yeah.
and you can really try because people really do try, and I think
Oh, they
anybody
yeah,
listening, yeah, anybody listening to this
right.
show can think of millions of ways that they've done this themselves, right? So,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. And we also, and I know I've done this.
Oh,
I've
yeah,
probably
me
had some.
too. Yeah, everybody,
I've,
but
I've probably
we've
still
both
have
done
some
this.
areas,
Yes.
right? But like the other thing about it, that I know that I've done is, like, I've had some aspect of myself that I've been pushing down, right? Trying to hide from everybody,
Yeah.
but everybody can still see it. Everybody can still feel it.
Yes.
Everybody still
Yes.
knows, and you think that you've got this amazing mask on that nobody can see through,
Sure.
um, but but that's the thing about energy,
Mhm.
you know.
Yes.
It's just like,
Yeah. Yep, we can
you
try to
can't.
hide and walk down the street with a mask, but everybody can tell that you're still wearing a mask.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And energy really is the language of the universe. And so, Bradford, help us understand here. How did you begin to develop this understanding or your experience of the balancing of this equation? How did this develop or arrive for you?
Um, well, it's funny because this, like, new level of understanding came through about 3 to 5 years ago,
Okay.
where there
Yeah.
was like a really big shift, and I that was when I started actually getting downloads and things about this, really coming to a
Hmm.
whole new level of clarity on it. And but what was interesting was that as I was coming to understand this on a different level, I was able to look back through my life from the time I was a little boy, and see how I was navigating the world, right? Um, and like, particularly, like, you know, I always had an awareness of, um, like, like a a sensitivity or an awareness of my feminine energy, right?
Sure.
Even though I didn't
Yes.
actually have that terminology around it, but I
Yeah.
was sensitive and I was emotional, and
Mhm.
stuff, and I could understand things that women were going through, things that they would tell me
Right.
about my friends, the girls that I knew, and things. But I also loved to play football and
Mhm.
tennis, and I was really
Right.
competitive, and I was on the swim team, and I loved hanging out with guys. Um, but in particular, I mean, in my teenage years, was an area where it was really interesting to look back now from this understanding, because you know I was I was well liked. I was a popular kid because I
Okay.
was friendly and I was funny, and
Sure.
like I was easy to get along with. So
Uh-huh.
you know
Yeah.
you make friends easily that way.
Yes.
So um but so I was really good friends with a lot of girls, right?
Mhm.
And I was
Okay.
really good friends with a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And so when I would hang out with the girls, they would share all kinds of amazing things with me about how their world worked and how they felt about things, and all this stuff. So that was really cool. Um, and then with the guys, we'd hang out and do guy stuff and ride bikes and play football and whatever the thing was,
Right.
right? And
Right.
and in both sets, everybody got along really well.
Mhm.
But this is where the thing comes in, because I was in a different energetic state than most of them were, particularly the
Sure.
guys.
Yeah.
So for the women, based on what the current paradigm was telling them, was they needed to be looking for somebody who was very masculine energetically dominant,
Okay.
right? Because that's the guy who's going to provide and support, and right, he's going to do the
Mhm.
things because he's a real man,
Right, right.
right?
Yeah.
That wasn't me,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
My feminine was still readily available, but so while the girls might have thought I was cute, they weren't really very interested. They weren't as interested in dating me as they were my friends, because my friends
Okay.
had already bought into very strongly the whole story of masculine energetic dominance, right? And
Right.
suppressing the feminine. So they ended up being much more attractive to the girls in our school.
Mhm.
And
Sure.
then with the guys, we were all super good pals, but I also didn't totally fit in there because of being right,
Yeah.
of having
Mm.
that feminine energy available.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that was uncomfortable for them.
Mhm.
And so we were great friends, but I was really never totally in
Right.
the crew,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so when you're a teenager and you're trying desperately to find where you fit in the world,
Mm. Yeah, that's the
right?
purpose of a teenager.
Along
Yeah. Mhm.
right, along with so
Yep.
many other things, and trying
Yeah.
to keep the pimples from getting out of control and things.
Sure.
Um yeah, so I was just like, wow, I don't fit in anywhere, and I see how this game works, and I'm totally losing at it.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yes.
because I mean, I mean, not that, I mean, things weren't really that terrible, but like, everything seems massive when you're a teenager, right? Everything is huge. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, but then, I mean, and then so like just that was a really interesting way of seeing that. And it also helped. I mean, and it helped me see that I really, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about whether I was good enough. It wasn't about whether I was smart enough or strong enough or good looking enough or any of those
Yeah.
things. It's just that where everybody was and the story that they were operating from
Mhm.
was not one that included me, right?
Okay.
because of how I was operating energetically. Um, and that's not my fault, and it's not
Right.
their fault, right? They're
Yes.
doing their best to fit in and figure their out their way through life as well.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but they they bought into and created their own story around what who they needed to be able to survive in the world, based on the feminine not being okay. And and so that's how they are
Yeah.
operating, right? and
Right.
and everybody does that, and everybody gets indoctrinated into this story or this paradigm, usually sometime, I mean, this is why we have a bunch of inner child work to do,
Sure.
right? This is why people talk
Yes.
about inner child work all the time,
Hmm.
because at some point, usually in childhood, that's when you get to somebody wakes you up to the founding uh principle of this current masculine energetic dominant paradigm, right? And
Yeah.
so you learn for the first time that it's not okay to be the full expression of yourself. And you've been that's how you were operating from day one. You're like,
Hmm.
I get to say whatever I want. I'm gonna yell if I need something, right? Like, however it is I'm gonna communicate, you're gonna know it. I'm gonna share it with you because I'm feeling this way, and I'm going to cry, or I'm going to laugh. All of these things, all of the emotions are readily available. And then you find out that it's not okay. And that if you're going to live on this planet and you're ever going to make something of yourself, this is how shit works,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yes.
And once you find that out, then you have to come up with a story of who you are, and how you're going to be, and what you're going to do to be able to fit in enough to make this workable.
Yeah, yeah, and there's so much there that I think people can relate to because it may speak to if you're listening out here, you may relate to a part of this journey. So, Bradford, how old were you approximately when you figured out that none of this was really about you?
Oh man, I mean, that particular thing, I mean, really it was just 2 or 3 years ago. So I was like,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
like, I'll be 53 in October.
All right.
So I don't know. I guess probably around 45 is when things started really shifting for me. And then, like, as I was about to turn 50, I was like, oh man, I am super stoked about
Hmm.
this birthday.
All
Like,
right. All right.
I can feel like this this is actually where I get to start living the best part of my life.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Because I had done so, I mean, particularly after I got divorced, I just, like, I had to do basically like a complete reconfiguration of my world, right? Inside and out,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
I had been married
Yeah.
for 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we had a kid, and I had to, I moved out, and I had to figure out what was going to go in my apartment. I didn't have anything, so I had to buy all new stuff. I had to figure out what I was going to put in my pantry and my refrigerator and my cupboards. Like,
Yes. Oh,
I
yeah.
had to choose everything all over again,
Yeah.
and that included all the parts in me that I hadn't been looking at, that had weird and, out of date stories attached to them. um and so honestly, it took about 6 or 7 years of just, like, a lot of going into the dark, right? Going
Yeah.
into the painful places,
Yes.
and, right, being depressed, being sad, you know doing so much questioning, crying, wondering what the hell was going on, and if anything was ever going to get better. I mean,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it was like a 7-year dark night of the soul. Um,
Sure.
but I mean, if you don't go there, you don't get there. You know what I'm saying, right? Like you
I
don't.
do. I do.
I mean, it's like I just launched Spiritual Masochist, a lifestyle brand, clothing brand,
Okay.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
community movement as well, and that actually came into being because I was having a conversation with my partner, and we were talking about how you have to keep going back into the pain. You have to actually want to go into the pain, and it takes courage to do that every single time. But
Yes.
what is on the other side of it feels so much better, right?
Uh-huh. Well, it does.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so
Hmm.
that's the pleasure from the pain. And I was like, I mean, it's like being a masochist. It's a spiritual masochist. And we were just like, oh my God, that's totally what it is. Like you have to want that pain. You have to want the pain and the pleasure that comes from it. And over again,
Uh-huh. Yes. Yeah. So this is a business of yours. So tell us a little bit about that business while we're talking about that.
oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So we just launched it last month in July. And it's a clothing brand, and then we're also providing like resources for people to find new, like continuing education,
Okay.
around personal growth,
Great.
as
Great.
well as we're starting a podcast as well, so that we can interview teachers and healers and stuff, so we can really add some extra flavor to what's going on there.
I love it.
Thanks. And so I mean, the purpose of the brand really is to have give people a tangible way to feel seen for themselves, and have others see them as well, for all of the
Okay.
hard work that they've done, all the personal growth and personal development work that's really invisible, right? Because it's just internal, like, and you can tell your story a million times, but no one will ever completely understand what it is you've gone through. And
Right.
so that can be kind of lonely. It can be sort of isolating, even if you are in a group healing session, even if you've
Yes.
got community, right? Like,
Yes.
so yeah, I just, I feel like, it's it seems more important now than I can ever remember it being, for people to really feel seen, for people to feel valued
Yeah.
for who they are and what they've been doing
Hmm.
to make themselves feel better, and help their world work better.
Right.
And so, spiritual masochist is one way of doing that, to just kind of be able to say, like, yes, I am a spiritual masochist. I am courageous, and I'm strong enough to keep facing the painful parts of me, and to go past the fear that lives there, right? The fear of facing that pain.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
because once you do, and once you start that process, you start seeing the rewards, you start feeling better, you start having better relationships, your world works better, right? Because you feel
Yes.
better, and you feel
Yes.
better about who you are, and that's better for everybody.
Hmm. Yeah, it really is. And one of the things that always strikes me about spiritual development is the fact that whether we hold ourselves out as teachers or not, we're always teaching people because we're all
Mm,
energetic, and
right.
what we teach matters. So now you all have launched then Spiritual Masochist, correct? And how would people
Yes.
find out more information about this?
Um, well, we're on all of the social media
Okay,
platforms,
great.
and then also at spiritualmasochist.com. You can see all of the products there. I think personally, I think they're really cool. I like them a lot, and
Guys, they are
um,
cool. I've seen some of them.
yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I got so wrapped up in, doing all the work behind launching this thing and
Hmm.
making social media posts and things that I forgot to actually order some for myself.
Oh, sure.
So I
Well,
just I just ordered my first tank top and t-shirt and trucker hat a couple of days ago, and so I'm now anxiously awaiting their arrival so I can, you know, wear
cool.
wear these cool things.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and that's fun. So that's a direct result of all of this personal growth work. Now, my understanding, Bradford, also is that you do this masculine and feminine energetic equation work professionally as well. So what does that look like when you work with people on this dynamic?
Yeah, well, up until recently, I've been doing individual, I guess, sort of mentoring sessions. I'm
Okay.
calling it saying calling myself a coach just feels weird to me. It doesn't feel right, but
Okay.
uh, so I've been having kind of individual mentoring sessions with people, because I've come to this level of awareness of how this energetic equation works. I can actually,
Yeah.
I can look at any situation or structure, from the biggest to the smallest, and see and describe how where things are energetically, right?
Hmm.
And how
Yes.
we can get to a different place that works better and feels better. um and um but it's interesting because a couple of weeks ago I came into a new realization during meditation one morning. I had a message come through that basically was like, you know what, you're actually not here to coach. You're not here to be that kind of teacher.
Okay.
You're here to bring awareness of what's happening in this energetic equation, so that, because in any personal transformation, awareness is 97% of the journey to the goodness, right? Because you already
Yes.
spent a whole big chunk of your life in whatever that thing is. And then once you come into the awareness, now you're at choice. Now you get to choose to either continue doing that or do something new,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So my role really is to speak about this a lot
Great.
and to bring
Good.
awareness to how this works, and what we can do to make things better for everyone, and then also um, connect people with the person who is their next teacher, right? The
Okay.
person who,
Yeah.
because each person is on their own journey, and each person has, like, I mean, there's never just like one teacher who can do everything for one person.
Right. That's true.
um, right, and we have different aspects of ourselves, and different modalities work better for different people at different times and for different parts of themselves and their journey. Um that it my role is to bring awareness and shine the light on teachers who are really good at what they do, and direct these people to them direct people to them so that people
Okay.
can continue their growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I love it. Well, and so talking about teachers, then, who have been some of your most valuable teachers on this journey?
um well, both my parents, for sure,
Okay.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
very, very different reasons for both of them. um uh and then, I let's see, gosh, I had a really great experience, although it was uh very challenging, um at the end, at the Star Foundation, outside of Tucson. um
Okay.
uh and then, like, I I've done a little bit of reading and some meditation stuff with Deepak Chopra,
Mm,
and I like
hmm.
what Thich Nhat Hanh has to say, and
Sure.
um, but really, for the most part, I have not sought out teachers as much as I have relied on myself
Okay.
to
Yeah.
really just be in the process of understanding myself,
Hmm.
and trusting that if I keep going, if I just keep going, or as Dory says, keep swimming,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Into Nemo.
Just
Uh,
keep swimming. A Nemo
yeah,
reference, guys. All right.
yeah.
Love it. Yep. Hmm.
um, if I just keep going, I'm going to get to where it is that I want to be, right?
Yes. Yep.
And for me, even though our world is set up for the reward to look like uh, financial success and a house and a car and all of these things, all of these things that we've gotten by doing, I've just always been more interested in how things feel,
Okay. Uh-huh.
right? Like I want to get to a certain feeling, not a certain doing or a certain having,
Yes.
right?
Okay. Sure.
Um, just like, and kind of going back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier about how everything is energy, I mean, and
Hmm.
I think people, in part because of the story of the value of the masculine, they discount their own innate intuition and energetic sensitivities and
Yeah.
things like that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
synchronicities and all of these things that are happening that are actually really amazing and beautiful and magical, but also not magical because it's actually just how things work. Right? Like
Yes, it is.
that's just how the things are supposed to work, but we just spend a lot of time fighting against it. Um, but I mean, like we already have all this built-in vernacular around it that everybody throws around
Yeah.
and then pretends like it's not actually energetic. Like, walking into a restaurant or a store and you're like, and I mean, how many times have you heard or said yourself, "Oh, I really like the vibe of this place," or I really don't like the vibe of this place,"
Yeah.
right? Well,
Yeah.
what is that, right? That's the
Yes.
energy of it. That is your energetic response to the
Hmm.
energy of that space, right? And it's the same thing with
Yes.
people, right? Like we were talking about earlier, right? The ones that you really resonate with, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I like that person so much." And then sometimes you can just be like standing a couple of feet away from someone, not even talking to them, and you're like, holy mackerel, that person is super terrible. I really hate the way that they feel.
Yeah. And then you just hit the word right there. Feel the vibe. I get a good vibe. I get a good
Mm,
feel for this. It's how you feel about it. Yeah.
hmm. Yeah, I mean, every
Yep.
time I go, like every time I need to move, uh there's a certain look that I prefer, but overall, like, I know the place that I'm going to live by how it feels when I walk in,
Okay.
right? When I walk
Yes,
into the
I
place,
do.
I'm like, "Ooh, okay, this place feels really good,"
Feels good.
right?
Mhm.
Like the way the light's coming in, the parameters, the way the spatial well, I'm totally blanking on the word. Proportions, yes.
Right.
The proportions of the space and everything like that, all of that goes into how that place feels, right?
Yes. Yeah, it does, and it's something that we all experience, right? We experience this
Hmm.
all the time. So, because you've worked with people on this specific energetic equation and helping them find their way around that, do you have any suggestions or anything that you'd like to say to somebody who may be considering delving into this kind of work, but maybe they're a little afraid to do it, right? Maybe they're not sure.
Hmm.
What kind of suggestions would you have for someone in that position?
Well, first, go easy on yourself, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Don't put a bunch of pressure on it to be something really big. Just
Hmm.
just be with it, right? Like all of this, I mean, do you have to have a level of seriousness about it? Yeah. I mean, because you have to like you have to get in there and really have the focus and the dedication to actually go through the process, whatever process that is, right?
Right,
Whatever
right.
modality you're going through, whatever the thing is. But it also doesn't have to just be a big lump of coal all the time, right? It doesn't have
Y-
to be this
Yeah,
dark, dense, terrible thing. You can also find some spaces to laugh about it. And also,
sure.
if you're not trying to put a bunch of pressure on it to be a certain thing or do a certain or like feel a certain way, then it's going to be easier to navigate. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
Secondly, uh, listen, listen to and trust yourself in the process. Right?
Okay.
If
Yes.
today doesn't feel like a day to really dive into that, don't, don't, don't force it. Don't, like
Yeah.
my partner is not really a fan of this saying, but I it cracks me up. It's something I made up, which is if you force shit, you get horse shit.
There
Right?
you go.
Like, like no, just like don't try to force it.
Hmm.
It's still gonna be there. If you need to take a nap and, you know, fall asleep and have Netflix ask you if you're still watching, do that.
Yes.
You know?
Right. Yeah, I think it's something that so many people do is they don't give themselves the grace. They won't give themselves the love, the self-love, and the
Mhm.
respect to understand that it's a process. So yeah, I really appreciate that advice. Those are really excellent suggestions for anyone. So Bradford,
Yeah.
yeah, as we wrap up here, I've really enjoyed finding out more about you and your journey, and this has been a real pleasure for me. But before we before we go, how can people get a hold of you to find out more about, well, you and the work
Mhm.
that you do? How can people reach you?
Okay. Yeah. Real quickly before I give that information, I
Sure,
just
sure, of
wanted to
course.
say that that going into those sensitive parts and finding that root story for
Mhm.
of your energetic part of that equation is where the big transformation comes from. So um,
Okay.
and to that end, I have a guided meditation that
Ah,
I've done
yes.
around accessing that feminine energetic root story, which is free and it's available on my website or on YouTube.
Great.
Um, and so we can give everybody the link to that.
You
And
bet.
so yeah, and so basically, I mean, you can find me at bradfordscottwalton.com, and I'm Bradford Scott Walton on Facebook and Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I don't really mess with Twitter much, but
Okay.
yeah. And then go check out spiritualmasochist.com too,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
check it out on. I mean, part of the fun for me with Spiritual Masochist is because it has like this sort of reference to sadomasochism.
There's the word
There's this the
masochist.
yeah, there's
It's
a
there.
whole
Yeah.
like funny sort of sexual component to it.
Uh-huh.
So I get to write uh kind of cheeky spiritual memes
Oh, all right.
um
Yeah. Yes.
that are really fun, and just like get to play around with a lot of stuff that is really a big part of my personality
Okay.
of like it's just
Yeah.
it's really like one of the posts that I put up was, you can't have sex with the universe and not get spanked a little.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and so now, can these memes be found on the website itself then?
Oh no, they're on social media.
They're on
They're on
social media.
Instagram and
Okay.
Facebook. Yeah,
I love
Twitter.
it. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's and keeping a sense of humor in there is something that's really important because we're talking about doing deep level, like deepest level emotional work. So to
Yeah.
have some sort of lightness in there
Yeah.
is really beneficial. Yeah.
It's really something that I have noticed that I need more of in my life. And so I've
Yeah,
been
yeah.
really putting a focus on like, I work hard and I'm serious about what I do, but I also want to have lightness. I want to have joy. I want to
Hmm.
be laughing, right? There's it's really really easy to be distracted by and depressed by what is happening in the world if you're watching the news on a regular
Oh,
basis,
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right? Like there's a
Yes.
lot of stuff going on. And if you are only paying attention to that, it seems like things are super terrible, but they're actually not as bad as what the stories are, right? We're in a
Hmm.
big shift from a fear-based paradigm to a love-based paradigm, and
Uh-huh.
that no transition happens without upheaval. Um, so that's what we're in. That's what we're getting right now. We're in the upheaval
Hmm.
portion of this transition. Um, all the structures that were built on the fear-based, masculine, energetic, dominant paradigm can't exist in the love based, feminine, energetically balanced paradigm, right?
Yeah.
So, all of those things, our financial system, our healthcare system, the political system, all of these things will have to either be restructured or they will collapse completely to be replaced by something new
Hmm.
that, as I
Right.
like to say, works well and feels better, right? And
Yes.
that is the greatest benefit of basically falling in love with your feminine energy,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's feeling better, and that's what we're talking about again with the title of the show, flipping the paradigm. And yeah, so I'm
Hmm.
glad that you threw that piece in at the end. It's so important because it's very clear that we're going through a transition, and to balance the equation does not mean that the formerly dominant piece of the equation is gone, guys. So in case you're
Right,
wondering about that, not in any way, shape, or form, we're
right,
talking harmonic
yeah.
balance.
And none of this is about blame or like
Yeah,
I'm very clear that if all the men in the world suddenly became uh in love with their feminine energy and saw that as a really beneficial part of them, the world would change overnight, right?
I agree.
Because
It would.
all of the pressure that comes from the men who are auto, energetically masculine dominant and so well positioned for being in this world,
Sure.
right? The way that
Oh
it's
yeah.
currently set up.
Yes.
Um, all of the pressure from of that is currently on women would be released. All of the pressure that is currently on the feminine to be suppressed and oppressed would be released, and then the feminine would just get to finally be, right.
Hmm.
Like it
Right.
would be like the biggest collective exhale ever, right? The
Yes.
biggest sigh of relief of like, oh shit, okay, wow, we all get to actually just be ourselves. We all get to actually be the full version of ourselves, and we don't have to be afraid about showing our feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what flipping the paradigm is all
I
about.
love it. I love it. We all can just hang out and not worry about
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Well, and we won't have to have labels about what anybody is, right?
Hmm.
Like it doesn't matter where you are on the gender spectrum. It doesn't matter what color your
Yeah.
skin is. It
Right.
doesn't matter what parts you have. You are a person. And then, if we can flip this paradigm like this, or when we flip it, we'll all just be able to relate as humans. There won't be
Right.
a need to have judgment or labels of someone being better or worse because of some quality of that they possess, or
Hmm.
inherit, and most likely have very little control over, right?
Yeah, yeah, most likely, right. And this is something that's so beneficial for people to know is that we're in the midst of making this change. So, Bradford, you can be reached then online via your website at bradfordscottwalton.com, and Spiritual Masochist is spiritual masochist, all one word, .com. And well, Bradford, this has been wonderful. I was looking forward to this, and I have to
Me
tell
too.
you, man, you totally delivered. I love this. This has been a great show. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Tomas. It's always a pleasure talking with you, whether it's being recorded for other people to listen to or just between us.
Yeah, yeah, we've had some good conversations, whether they're recorded for a worldwide radio audience or not. Yeah, but this
uh,
is Bradford Scott Walton, guys. Again, bradfordscottwalton.com is where you can find more information about Bradford, about his practice. And this has been Decide to Transform, Flipping the Paradigm, talking about balancing our inner masculine and feminine energetic equation so we can help balance globally the energetic equation. All right, everybody, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you back here again on Decide to Transform. Everybody, have a great day.